You're listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and it's time for this week's Long Island News, the show that talks to newsmakers from Nassau and Suffolk County that matter to Long Island and Long Islanders like you. So each week we'll have a conversation about issues that affect all of us. I live on Long Island just like you, and I want to know more about where my tax dollars are going, and I want to know more about the people making the big decisions that affect all of us. Well, this week, I'm very happy to welcome back to our show Kimberly Jean-Pierre, the New York State Assemblywoman for the 11th District, which mainly includes portions of the town of Babylon in Suffolk County. She's a Democrat, and she has been in this seat since she was first elected in 2014. Welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be in person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. We didn't have a lot of in person for the last 2 years. We say we were Zooming a lot.
Right.
You know, but, okay, well, let's kick it off. My producers always give me a thing, but so I know we have a bunch of topics we want to cover. It's only a half an hour. So if we dive right in, now, one of your priorities this year includes Veterans Services. If I just read in the paper, too, you're on a Veterans Committee? Correct.
So I was newly appointed in January as the chair of the Veterans Committee, which I'm very excited. It's, in my 9th year in office, it's an opportunity. It's going to be an awarding experience for me to really be able to help those who allow us to be in these very seats.
Well put. Yeah. Then we also have here what the governor has put in her latest budget proposal that affects veterans programs and related activities, and what's the latest discussion in those committee meetings?
So since January, I've been appointed. I've been meeting with, the commission. Well, it's actually a division that's transferring into a department. So we're actually going to be having a real department for our Veterans Committee in the state as a state agency. I'm thrilled about that. So I've been meeting with hopefully the new commissioner and other groups that have been working with the Veterans Committee, both the Senate and the Assembly, trying to find out what resources we can do, what policy changes we can do. I've met with some folks in the federal level, looking at what their priorities are for New York State and where we should be to make sure that we're providing current veterans and folks who are coming home from active duty, to make sure that that transition is nice and easy, and they're getting the services that they rightfully deserve.
Yeah. This is. I mean, this has been an issue that's been going. It's forever ongoing.
Yeah.
I have a favorite saying. I said the government likes their soldiers, but their veterans not so much.
Yeah.
And you hear horror stories about. Even the homeless. If we look at the number of homeless people, a big percentage of those people
are veterans. And it's unfortunate. It's sad. Their families themselves, they sacrifice so much for our safety, for the rights we have in this country. And when they serve, they come home. They should be rolled out the red carpet.
Great. Yeah. Well, and we look forward to hearing, so you can trumpet loud the things that are happening,
Absolutely. Follow us on social media, and our newsletter, and we'll connect with you again. Looking forward to hopefully come back and talk about some of the things that, we want to do in the budget. We want to work with the other committee members on, hopefully we'll have a Navy Day. We heard that we haven't had a Navy, but they would like to have a Navy Day. We have Fort Drum, and I'll just be taking some tours and just learning and listening to veterans across the state to ensure that we are doing the right thing.
Right. Well, another topic of funding involves public education. Oh, let's go there.
So I'm a big supporter. I'm a product of public education. My daughter's in public school. She's in 2nd grade. And public education is the equal opportunity. It should be the equal opportunity for all students, no matter what zip code you reside in, where you're from, what neighborhood. education should be quality all across the board. And we should be providing our administrators, our teachers with the resources to do that, to do just that. So, I mean, we fully funded foundation aid. We did some historical numbers during COVID for our public schools. I know there's a lot more to do. I've been working on we've seen things across the country with, these, as a parent, these unfortunate situations of shootings across where districts have to up their security systems. And I would like to see somewhere where we're supporting our schools where they can not be piercing their 2% tax cap when they're purchasing adequate equipment, purchasing these manhunt doors. They call them vestibule doors, and just other security systems, updated, modern, to protect our little babies and our teachers.
How do you feel about, one of the latest things that occurred here in Long Island is I think it was the Smithtown decided to go with armed guards for the schools. How are you feeling about that?
At first, as a parent, you're like, oh my God, weapons in the school. But I actually just met with one of our superintendents yesterday, West Babylon, and they have all armed guards. And, I posed a question to her, and, 80% of the district parents were okay and 20% were concerned. But they've created these avenues, security systems of like, when the security guard goes to the bathroom, he's putting his weapon down. It's only a one stall. There's no other. They're taking certain particular measures to make sure that there's no other incident. So, and these are trained. Most of them are trained, retired law enforcement. I'm going to carry a bill with Senator Monica Martinez, which will have training for regular security guards. They should be trained, up to trained, and the training will be conducted by the State Police Department and Homeland Security. So not every district can afford, because it's more expensive when you have retired law enforcement, and then it's also when you have armed law enforcement.
Right. I would imagine liability insurance becomes an issue. Right. So
we want to make sure that districts that don't have that they have the trained personnel to protect our babies. Right. Because I am a believer that money should not be the reason why we're not providing adequate resources and resources to our institutions.
Yeah, I agree. I interviewed the Nassau County Police Commissioner last week, and we talked about the Smithtown thing and the armed guards. And one of the things he brought up, which kind of stopped me in my tracks for a minute, he said an armed guard at a school is going to be the first person that attracts attention of a shooter. So those guys are more likely, they're putting themselves in harm's way as an obvious guard at a school. If someone has a negative intent for the school, they have to get rid of him first. And he's basically said these guys are volunteering to be the target so that the kids aren't the first target.
Right.
And I didn't think of that initially. In my mind's eye, I see a guy shooting his gun at somebody. Yeah. But if he's just standing at the school, and somebody is approaching with bad things in mind, he's going to be the guy that takes the brunt of it, which...
And I think, these conversations, and I thank you for bringing that up, because it allows us as local residents, as parents, to be more in tuned, go to your PTA meetings, see what your school district is doing. Security measures are very, very important.
Yeah. I would say in relation to what you just said, I think the school board meetings are very important. Yes. And people need to keep an eye on their own school board meetings.
Correct.
In the last couple of years, we've had an influx of people who don't even belong in the school district.
I agree with you.
And I understand that because I've discussed this with a couple of lawmakers, and one of the things about school board meetings is they can close them, but that means nobody gets to speak. But if they keep them open, they can't discriminate against who can and who can't talk at a school board meeting. I kind of think common sense ought to reign. And if you have children in the district, you should be welcome to come and speak at the school board meeting.
Absolutely.
But if you have no other connection to that school board meeting, you don't belong there. Yep. I think that's, have we strayed so far from common sense that we can't even get that,
It's a half and half, right? Because we've seen some community residents, they're still paying a school portion taxes. I think that there needs to be people need to remember logic. Logic plays a huge role, right? If I didn't have 2 children, I'm at my school board meeting. I should be there as a community parent, remembering the interest at the end of the day, from the top from east to west on Long Island, wherever we are in any school district, the most important thing is when we're making these arguments that it has to benefit the child.
The kids, right.
It has to benefit the kids.
Yeah. So many questions that, they're tough issues, though. Yeah. When you think of armed guards in Smithtown, many people, just the first thing, more guns is not the answer to some. Okay, I get that. And the idea, like you say, if there's a very strict protocol for how that person carries that gun in that situation, and
they shouldn't be visible. Like, right, they shouldn't, they can be like, there's some districts I know they're not visible, right? They're walking around, they're communicating with the kids, they're, building relationship with the kids, building relationship with the administration, the teachers. And some districts don't have them visible. They're not visible.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a toughie. Yeah. I remember speaking with the police commissioner another time and I said as a kid, the only place I ever remember seeing that kind of police presence would be on TV. And it was usually Israel they were showing us with submachine guns and, and as a kid, that kind of gave me a shiver that, wow, they live like this. Yeah. And welcome to, today's America. Yeah. And it was during the World Trade Center stuff when you got off a train, the LIRR in the city. And what did we see? We saw
tons. And tons. Anywhere you went, you saw them. Right. But, when we talk about these armed law enforcement retired, it should be a community decision. It should be an involvement with the community members, because there is some sensitivity around, police officers, and, we need to get past that. But the way we get past that is having real conversation and uncomfortable conversation, to get to a place where we both can trust each other. That is because at the end of the day, I think we're both on the same side, but we just need to come together and have those and continue those dialogues, because dialogue doesn't happen one day. No. Transformation doesn't happen one day. Change is a process. Yeah. Painful process. Usually, sometimes, yep.
You're listening to this week's Long Island News on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and my guest today is Kimberly Jean-Pierre, New York State Assemblywoman for the 11th District, which mainly includes portions of the town of Babylon in Suffolk County. I know you're also working to secure more resources for DSP workers. What is that? What's the...
Direct service. So it's direct service personnel. So home health aides, folks who provide direct services to another vulnerable population, right? Folks who go in people's houses, take care of a lot of our elderly population. And you find majority of these workers are women of color. And they put so much effort into, these families. They provide all this care.
It's a thankless job.
It's a thankless job, and they can barely put food on their tables. And this is just a small token. It's a tax credit, and it allows them to, when they file their taxes, to get a tax credit. But I would love to see where we're paying them fair wages, livable wages.
I think because I'm familiar with this. I've had a few. There's kind of an underground where people go and secure home health aides, but they're paying top dollar, which I think may be one of the reasons why some of the really good home healthcare workers will not sign up with an organization because now they're restricted to the amount of money they can make legally. They can make much more if a family approaches them and says, I need somebody to watch 24/7.
Yep.
Okay, but that's going to cost you about $2,000 a week.
We're losing as New Yorkers when we do that,
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we're losing a huge tax.
The taxes,
And then we're also not helping others who are working for an agency and meet the bare minimum. And it's just unfair and they invest in these families.
Oh.
I remember, with just so little, we would go Christmas shopping for some of the families that she took care of because they had less than us. And she was a whole believer. If we can buy something for $5 for someone, it goes a long way. But we were struggling as a family, a single household. So it's just unfair. We need to get at a point where, and it goes back to, when we talk about our veterans, we need to roll out the carpet for those who take care of the vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we need to do better as a society and to take care of our working class families.
But it's nice to see when you just said, they had less than us, but you were thankful for what you did have.
Yep.
And so it was you were capable of going out and, again, even that $5, it's not the gift. It's that somebody saw me.
Somebody thought of me.
Somebody cared. Yeah, very big. I know that there are workers in the education system, and I thought that's what this referred to was like teachers' aides for developmentally disabled kids.
We need to do more for them. Yeah.
When I think of, in that industry, I think one of the best kept secrets is that almost every caregiver has been hurt, either trying to pick somebody up and, get them in a car, the things with the wheelchairs, all of the sometimes braces.
Yep.
And
they're lifting up people. They're like they're
I see
they're
these little ladies,
yeah.
and there's a big kid who was like 6'2", and
or a man,
and she's going to pick him up and put. Well, this is in a school situation,
okay.
Still, and I've always wondered when they're out there hiring, or do they let these people know that most likely they're going to get hurt? I don't think so. That's why I say it's the best kept secret. So many disabilities, and it's a direct result of the population that they're working with, and to add insult to injury and not get paid what you're worth for doing that.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. I know back in January you introduced a bill to tax-exempt cloth face masks, such as those used to prevent the spread of COVID-19 from state sales and use taxes.
I mean, we were at a point where we're all required to wear masks, and why not create a tax exemption for those who are buying it, particularly who are buying it in bulk? But I think we're past that now. But that was a time that legislation was key for that time,
right?
And so unfortunately, it didn't pass. But when especially businesses, I went to businesses personally, handing out masks, handing out hand sanitizer, and they were so grateful because they needed their business to function. But they, it was also, they were hurting from the pandemic, but they also had to go out and purchase these items. Right. So if you can alleviate some sort of little small token, it goes a long way.
What you just reminded me, there are quite a few people who were, I guess you could say, caught getting pandemic relief in big numbers.
Yeah.
Is there any concerted effort to go after those people?
I've heard that folks had to pay back. There's no real, I think the agency is going to operate, is looking at better. I mean, it was during a pandemic. You were short-staffed. Agencies were short-staffed. Agencies are still short-staffed currently right now. I think everyone is short-staffed. You walk into a store, it's 2-3 employees. Right. And the jobs are out there, right? But, shame on them, right? Shame on them. I think it's very difficult to manage sometimes all of the, you give. It's like, it's like my mom used to say, if someone's at the gas station and they're asking you for money for food and you give them money, are you going to walk behind them every single second and make sure they go get food? You just hope that they're doing the right thing. And as New Yorkers, I just hope that we're doing the right thing.
Oh, that, yeah. It's interesting. I used to work on 53rd Street, 10th Avenue in New York City, Hell's Kitchen. And there would be people asking for money. And somebody would say, well, don't give him money. He's just going to buy alcohol with it. I'd say, okay. But you know what? He's hurting right now. And if he doesn't buy that alcohol with it, it's not up to me to decide. I'm either going to give it to him or I'm not. But I'm not going to judge what he goes to get with it. That's not my life. That's his. It's a pittance. Those are always tough questions. And I was thinking about this the other day. They were talking about courage and things like that. And I said, you know what? It takes courage to be nice.
It does.
It takes courage to give someone a compliment.
It does.
It's
unfortunate.
Courage isn't always about I'm going to, I get to overtake somebody or physically be, just going through your life being a decent person.
You fight with your own biases.
Takes courage. Yeah, it does. Anything else that you want to tell the listening audience, things that are going on?
Yes, it's budget season. It's crazy season, I call it.
That's all the time now.
It's theater season. It's, we take things out the budget. We've digested the executive proposal, and now we're working to put our one house proposal. So the Assembly will put in their one house proposal and the Senate will put in their one house proposal. And then once those two things happen, and then, they call it the 3 men in the room, but it's no longer 3 men in the room. There is our Senate leader is a woman, and we just start negotiating. And I am huge on making sure that Long Island is heard. And we used to always say that we used to have pockets of poverty, and now we have pockets of wealth. And we need to ensure that the working class on Long Island gets their fair share. We've seen that with our public schools, but we need to do more with our DSP, our direct service workers. We need to ensure that universal meals at public schools, that all kids, when they go to school, that they have 2 quality nutritional meals. No matter,
why aren't school lunches free?
I don't know. It's a stigma. Some folks say, well, why should we pay for their food? We should be paying for all of our babies' food. They're going to school, let them eat. We should not be, just like what you said when you worked in the city, we should not be fighting over food.
No.
Food is the union that brings us all together. When you go to an event, you hear there's food, you're showing up. Right. So, you want to go out to dinner, you're eating dinner. You're having, dinner. Food is the thing that brings people together over conversation. Yeah. And we should not have one child sitting down and not eating or not getting that cake or get dessert because they didn't have $2 in their bank. Yep. Or they didn't have,
See, and that irks me to no degree when I hear of a story about, and it's pick a state, and some kid didn't get served lunch because you can't. Who has the, what can I call it, the chutzpah to deny a child lunch? If I was serving lunches on the line and that happened, I would reach into my pocket and buy the kid lunch. This is no big philosophical, I know. It's amazing.
Logic, that's what I said earlier, logic.
Amazing. Well, here's the thing.
Logic.
Everybody talks about being critical thinkers. You hear all the time, I'm a critical thinker. And I usually qualify that and just ask, okay, there's one ingredient I want to know if it exists in your critical thinking. And that's the possibility that you could be wrong. And that I don't hear a lot from, oh no, I got this idea and I'm going with it. Okay, no possibility you could be wrong. Right?
Yep.
At least take it into account. When
I agree. 100%.
Really wild stuff we're seeing. I don't know. I open a newspaper and I hold my breath.
It's tough in critical times. We need to make sure that we are providing adequate mental health services, folks who were put in home for 2 years. Some folks had the opportunity to have a backyard. Some folks didn't have the opportunity. They were homeschooling and working remotely in a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment. The effects of what COVID has done to some folks mentally, health-wise. So, in this budget, I would like us to, make sure that we're zeroing on down onto mental health services and making sure that it's hitting the ground. It's hitting those small organizations that do so much in all of our communities with very little, and they could do so much more. Last year, I took on housing discrimination bills. We've passed a few bills on housing discrimination because one of the things that we see is segregation on Long Island. And we need to make sure that people can live where they want to live, right? And can go to school where they want to go to school. And the best place to live is when you have a neighbor in your community that's Black, that's white, that's Indian, that's Asian, and just the beauty of the melting pot.
We knew that a long time ago, that our differences are what is our strength, you know. But we've seemed to have forgotten the lessons from the past, and it's like we all have to start over again. I had this discussion with the rabbi, and he asked me, what do you think it is? I said, I think it's holding the door open for the guy behind you. Even if you don't know him, you don't agree with him, you don't like the way he looks, hold the damn door. That's where it starts. We have to be civil to each other. And then, or those conversations you talked about will never take place.
That's right. Common courtesy.
Bingo. Yeah. She's looking at me. She knows I'm watching the clock. Sometimes
I could be here all day.
Yes, I know we could. And there are so many other things I think of to talk with you about, but the producers say, no, you can't do that. So you definitely have to agree to come back.
I will.
And we want to hear the outcome of some of the things, the veterans program. I heard at Nassau University Medical Center, they were going to carve out a space in there for an offshoot of the Veterans Hospital.
Oh, I would have to visit. I didn't know that.
To have, just to make it
awesome.
Well, so people didn't all have to go to Northport.
That's right.
Western Nassau people.
And that's actually one of the things that the division going into a commission wants to focus on. And just as a state legislature, we want to make sure that transportation, because transportation is a huge problem all across the state, particularly in suburban New York, right? When you have someone that lives in Garden City and they need to get to Northport, or they live in Westbury, they need to get to Northport, it's nearly impossible if you don't have the funds, if you're not working.
Take you 2 days to get there, take care of your business and get home.
And then if you have to get public transportation to connect, it's like 4 hours.
Well, we'll be watching.
Yes.
My guest today has been Kimberly Jean-Pierre, New York State Assemblywoman for the 11th District, which mainly includes portions of the town of Babylon in Suffolk County. And thank you for taking the time to be here today to speak with us. And you will be back, right?
I sure will.
We hope so. Well, the clock on the wall says it's time for this week's Long Island News to get on out of here. I'm Bill McIntyre, and remember, you can listen to us by searching for this week's Long Island News wherever you listen to podcasts. And we are right here every Friday at 3 p.m. on the radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.